Good afternoon and namaste. Welcome to a special webinar on security beyond borders, strengthening BIMSTEC role in countering national non-traditional security threats, which is jointly organized by BIMSTEC Secretariat, Dhaka, South Asia Sustainability and Security Research Institute, Colombo, and Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement, Kathmandu. The BIMSTEC region today is increasingly affected by a wide range of non-traditional security challenges that transcends national borders. Terrorism and other security threats and violent extremism continue to pose serious concern in the region, while cross-border organized crime, human trafficking, and illicit flow of undermined regional stability. At the same time, climate change-induced disasters, pandemics, cyber threats, and energy and food security are also placing unprecedented pressure on states and societies across the Bay of Bengal region. These interconnected challenges highlight the limits of purely nation's response and underscore the urgent need for BIMSTEC to strengthen collective framework for cooperation, intelligence sharing, disaster preparedness, and human security-centric governance. As a Himalayan country, Nepal stands on the front line of climate change. Although our carbon footprint is negligible, we are acutely vulnerable as its consequences, with the consequences like glacial lake outburst, erratic monsoons, floods, landslide, and threats to food and water security. This vulnerability is further shaped by our geography, as Nepal is situated between two of the world's largest carbon emitters. While climate change is global in origin, its impact are profoundly unequal, and countries like Nepal bear disproportionate risk. From a Nepali perspective, non-traditional security threats such as climate insecurity, disaster, pandemics, cyber risk, and transnational crimes cannot be managed within the national borders alone. They demand regional solutions rooted in cooperation, early warnings, information sharing, and collective resilience. This is where BIMSTEC's role becomes crucial. BIMSTEC has the potential to evolve from a primarily economic and connectivity focused grouping into a meaningful platform for regional human security. Strengthening cooperation on disaster risk reduction, climate adaptation, and capacity building, especially for least developed and mountainous countries, should be central to its agenda. For Nepal, security beyond borders means placing people, environment, and resilience at the heart of regional cooperation. BIMSTEC can help ensure that development and security move together and that the voices of the most vulnerable are not sidelined but prioritized. It is in this context we have invited very eminent speakers. First, we have Secretary General of BIMSTEC, His Excellency Indra Pandey. Ambassador Pandey got some urgent appointments, so he had sent us a video address. We are sharing it here. Thank you.
Namaskar. Dr. Pramod Jaiswal, Research Director, Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement. Colonel Nalin Herath, Executive Director, South Asia Sustainability and Security Research Institute, Sri Lanka. Distinguished participants, Namaskar again. Good afternoon to you all. It gives me immense pleasure to participate at the webinar on Security Beyond Borders, Strengthening BIMSTEC's Role in Countering Non-Traditional Threats. I thank Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement and South Asia Sustainability and Security Research Institute of Sri Lanka for organizing this webinar, inviting BIMSTEC to join it as a partner and giving me an opportunity to speak on behalf of the Secretariat. The strategic importance of Bay of Bengal from security and developmental perspectives for the BIMSTEC member states cannot be overemphasized. It's believed that Bay of Bengal, a shared maritime space, is also a common security space, and it faces both traditional as well as non-traditional security challenges. These challenges are intrinsically transnational in nature. The BIMSTEC member states located adjacent to Bay of Bengal cannot effectively address them alone. Therefore, the need for cooperation, bilateral as well as regional, has been underlined and prioritized by them. BIMSTEC has been committed to realize its vision of a developed, resilient and secure Bay of Bengal region. Since realization of sustainable development goals and security are considered interdependent and interlinked, BIMSTEC member states have attached as much priority to regional security cooperation as to regional developmental partnerships. As you are aware, Bay of Bengal region is confronted with a complex spectrum of security threats, ranging from terrorism including bioterrorism, transnational organized crime including cybercrime, drug trafficking and arms smuggling, threats to underwater infrastructure, radicalization, human trafficking, cybersecurity, maritime security. These threats do not respect national borders, and they are transnational due to various kinds of linkages among the organizations and individuals who pose these threats. Recognizing the need to cooperate to deal with these evolving and shared security challenges, the BIMSTEC member states have given a high priority to regional security cooperation, with India designated as the lead member state. The Joint Working Group on Counter-Terrorism and Transnational Crime, established after the 8th BIMSTEC ministerial meeting in Dhaka in 2005, has been and remains the principal institutional mechanism for forging cooperation in security sector. It has a number of subgroups dedicated to deal with specific security threats. An additional mechanism of the meeting of National Security Advisor Chiefs was created in 2016 after the retreat of BIMSTEC leaders hosted by Prime Minister of India on the sidelines of BRICS Summit in Goa. The NSAs or their counterparts have so far met 4 times. They have imparted a new momentum to regional security cooperation under BIMSTEC with focus on maritime security, cyber security, etc., reflecting the need to deepen and expand regional security cooperation. It has been decided to establish a new mechanism of BIMSTEC Home Ministers meeting to monitor and guide various aspects of regional security cooperation. India has offered to host the inaugural Home Ministers meeting in 2026. The Joint Working Group and its subgroups have made significant progress. We already have in force since March 2021 BIMSTEC Convention on Cooperation in Combating International Terrorism, Transnational Organized Crime, and Illicit Drug Trafficking. Further, BIMSTEC Convention on Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters was signed and adopted at the 5th BIMSTEC Summit in March 2022. It has not yet entered into force, pending ratification by 2 member states. The draft text of BIMSTEC Convention Against Trafficking in Persons has already been finalized, while the draft texts of BIMSTEC Conventions on Transfer of Sentenced Person and Extradition respectively are under discussion. A draft Memorandum of Association for establishing BIMSTEC Himalayan Science Council is also under consideration of the member states. Once these instruments are concluded and entered into force, they would bolster regional legal framework for security cooperation. We have also succeeded in finalizing numerous guidelines. Finalization of BIMSTEC guidelines for maritime component of humanitarian assistance and disaster relief is regarded as a crucial step towards enhancing our capacity to respond effectively to natural disasters in Bay of Bengal region. Also, BIMSTEC member states have finalized guiding principles for conduct by maritime law enforcement agencies during their interaction at sea, and guidelines for coordinated marine oil spill response, which demonstrate their resolve to ensure maritime security and protect marine environment. We also have under consideration various initiatives for forging regional cooperation in enhancing maritime domain awareness. BIMSTEC has also finalized a number of plans of action for forging cooperation to deal with specific security threats, such as 5-year action plan for cyber security cooperation, action plan to prevent illicit flow of funds, plan of action to combat trafficking in persons in Bay of Bengal region, and plan of action on drug control. We have signed a MOU with UN Organization for Drugs and Crime with a view to leverage its expertise, resources and programs for strengthening regional cooperation under BIMSTEC in combating drug trafficking and other organized crime. Further, BIMSTEC has been accorded the status of an observer at Asia Pacific Group on Money Laundering APG. While we have made considerable progress, there is a lot that remains to be done. There are a number of new and emerging security threats that need to be addressed. The Secretariat is committed to work with the BIMSTEC member states to take essential steps to strengthen and deepen security cooperation under BIMSTEC. The Secretariat is also committed to pursuing full and effective implementation of various conventions, agreements and MOUs, as well as action plans for enhancing regional security cooperation, including through enhancing linkages amongst the institutions of the member states which are dealing with various aspects of security cooperation under BIMSTEC, and prioritizing sharing of information, intelligence, and best practices and capacity building. In conclusion, I wish to thank again NIICE and SASSRI for organizing this webinar and commend them for taking this timely initiative. I'm looking forward to have the opportunity to benefit from the views and perspectives of security experts from various BIMSTEC member states. I wish this webinar success in realizing its goals. I wish to reiterate the commitment of the Secretariat to reach out to various think tanks in the BIMSTEC member states, as our member states highly value their role and contribution. I wish you all joyful and meaningful deliberations. I thank you for your kind attention. Have a nice evening. Namaskar.
Thank you. Now I'd like to invite our next speaker, Mr. Myint, who is a seasonal diplomat and senior strategy advisor with more than 4 decades of experience spanning government services, international diplomacy, and the private sector. He currently serves as a senior advisor at the Myanmar Institute of Strategic and International Studies. Mr. Myint devoted over 2 decades to Myanmar civil service as a career diplomat, holding range of senior positions within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. His diplomatic postings include assignment as First Secretary, Economic and Commercial at the Myanmar Embassy in Bangkok, Second Secretary at the Myanmar Embassy in New Delhi, and Third Secretary at the Myanmar Embassy in Tokyo. He also served with key administrative and policy roles at MOFA headquarters, including Deputy Principal Officer at the Minister's Office and Assistant Director in both the ASEAN Department and the Administrative Department. Throughout his diplomatic career, he has actively engaged in bilateral and multilateral economic, trade and commercial, as well as cultural cooperation, as well as he has participated in different international conferences, workshops, and negotiations. Mr. Thun, over to you. You have 7 to 8 minutes.
Hello, very good afternoon from all participants. Indeed, I have the pleasure to join the webinar BIMSTEC, the non-traditional threat subject matter. So I will little repeat the NTT, non-traditional threat. The non-entity issue Myanmar focusing on how these multifaceted risks are shaped by Myanmar's unique political, economic, and social ecology landscape. Non-traditional the threat refer to threats that go beyond conventional military concepts, such as food insecurity, health crisis, environmental change, displacement, transnational crime, cyber vulnerability, and cross-border movement. Myanmar has been conflict-driven displacement. Millions of people have been internally displaced due to ongoing domestic crises. As to humanitarian blockage, there has been restricted access to affected area due to conflicts, complicating the delivery of relief supply, contributing to rising hunger and disruption of education and healthcare system. Regarding food security and nutrition crisis, Myanmar agriculture and food system have been severely impacted by conflicts and displacement. In this circumstance, people facing acute hunger, in part due to disrupted agricultural production, limited humanitarian access, and economic collapse. We noted that food insecurity in Myanmar is a core entity challenge that driven by conflict, economic instability, and climate shock, which threatens both immediate survival and long-term human capital development. Under transnational crime and illicit network, Myanmar fragile governance environment has enabled the growth of organized crime. In this regard, scam center and trafficking are operating near national borders. Cybercrime are also expanding, affecting regional security and crime networks. So, in regard to the Cyber Security Center, the first meeting of the BIMSTEC expert group on cyber security cooperation held in New Delhi, India, in July 2022. That meeting discussed and updated the draft 5-year action plan of BIMSTEC cyber security cooperation, agreed to set up BIMSTEC CERT, that Computer Emergency Reporting Cooperation Mechanism, and to create a BIMSTEC cybercrime cooperation framework among the law enforcement agencies. According to 5-year action plan for BIMSTEC cyber security cooperation, discuss 7 objectives. Each member country should have to take lead to the initiative under the objective. According to this, Myanmar has been assigned to lead number 3 objective, which is protection of critical information infrastructure, CII. The detailed implementation process will be discussed annually at the BIMSTEC expert group on the cyber security cooperation meeting. To signify the added effort of the BIMSTEC member states in enhancing cyber security and coordinate their response to cyber threat. Transnational crime in Myanmar is both entity concern and a regional security issue that intersecting with economic collapse and lot of further. However, Myanmar authority concerned has taken punitive measure and action has been taken against scam and trafficking with MISIS and Myint. In conclusion, we have of the opinion that now traditional threat entity in the BIMSTEC region cannot be tackled by individual states alone. Ecologic, coordinated, and comprehensive approach combining security, development, technology, and human security is essential for long-term regional stability and resilience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Thun Myint. Thank you so much for your remarks. May I now invite Colonel Retired Nalin Herath, RSP, who is the Executive Director at South Asian Sustainability and Security Research Institute, based in Colombo, which he have started after his retirement from military in September 2025. With 31 years of service in Sri Lankan Army, retired as a colonel, he played a key role as a Director General and Director Research at Institute of National Security Studies, Colombo. He was appointed there since September 2023. He was also Director of Media and spokesperson for the Ministry of Defense in Sri Lanka, where he was overseeing director at INSS. His career featured senior staff appointment in national security and defense communication. He holds a master's degree in management from defense studies from Sir Kotewala Defense University, Sri Lanka. Sir, over to you. So please unmute yourself. I think we're disconnected. Okay, let me move to the next speaker in the meantime. May I now invite Dr. Sreeradha Datta, who is a professor of international affairs at OP Jindal Global University, where she also served as a director of the Center for Analytical Research and Engagement. She is a non-resident senior fellow at the Institute of South Asian Studies, ISAS, National University of Singapore. She completed her MPhil and PhD from MPhil from Jadavpur University and PhD from Jawaharlal Nehru University. She has authored, edited over 10 books, including her latest edited volume on Bangladesh on the New Journey, Moving Beyond Regional Identity, which was published by Bloomsbury in 2024. She has published over 170 articles in journal, edited volumes, newspaper, and academic websites. She continues to participate in different bilateral dialogues, and she is also the journal editor at different journals. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you so much for this invitation. Delight to be here. Let me quickly jump to the topic. I think one of the most distinctive features of BIMSTEC has been that its attempt to develop a security cooperation framework. While we do know that BIMSTEC has over the years struggled to form together, and it's as mentioned by the Secretary General and also by you, Dr. Pramod, about how the inception and how it, has gained momentum in recent years. But while many of the other features is a work in progress, and there of course has been some, contribution in terms of climate issues and weather forecast and all of that. But I think one of if you compare to the other regional experiences that we've had in the region, BIMSTEC really shines out about the kind of attempt it has about the security platform. And as you've just heard that, more than 4 times the NSAs have all met, and it's a work in progress, but that really kind of adds that extra edge to this organization. And I think all of us, engaged with the various aspects of BIMSTEC understand how important and critical it is for various other things to come together. But flowing from the security cooperation, I think it's a very, very useful attempt here to discuss the non-traditional security, which is, of course, the natural corollary of the aspects of cooperation. But we've also seen that, the emergence of non-traditional threats in the region amongst the BIMSTEC member often is a catalyst for moving beyond and behind the kind of a normative and the operational structure that you always think about member countries. So that's something that while when it comes to security cooperation, which has also been difficult, it's not that it's been easy within BIMSTEC or elsewhere, but for non-traditional security cooperation to actually emerge is far more challenging. And I think that's something that we'll have to take into cognition at the very outset and understand that it's a challenge which not only produces an impact on people's safety, but it's also something that affects primarily from non-military sources and presents high threat not only to the people, as we are mentioning, but also to the state survival. And I think that's something, and I often look at COVID and, look at the experience of COVID, and I'll come back to that later also as looking at the larger, broader aspects that we need to look at when we are discussing non-traditional security challenges. While, of course, we know, and I won't get into the detail of what we mean by the non-traditional security. Again, I think our previous speaker and you also did highlight about the different aspects, but clearly it is something that where security is considered much beyond to include in the state formation, the societies, people, it kind of affects everybody. But more importantly, whenever cooperation in this sector is considered, we also have to constantly factor in, involve, engage the transnational actors. I mean, clearly government, and the leaders are important as a particular entity in contributing to the NTS, but at the same time, the transnational actors have not only contributed to giving rise to non-traditional security, but also in terms of resolving it and engaging it. So it cuts both ways. And coming back to what I mentioned about the COVID, I think something what we've all, I think even today, constantly talk back and look at the lessons of COVID. One thing that really came very clearly through in this particular region of South Asia and a little bit of Southeast Asia, which is part of the BIMSTEC, is that the regional organizations were not prepared enough. And each state was struggling at that point of time. Of course, all of them did remarkably well. It came at a high cost, not only for lives, but also economic, financial, it was very, very deeply affected. I think all member countries were. And I think this is something that we need to kind of understand that there's a larger, broader, there's always going to be a black swan moment in any region. And BIMSTEC is not any outside that. So we have to put in place something of a larger regional framework where in such issues that we can come in. And it's also important while we talk about that to factor in the wherewithal and the capacity of member states. Just for instance, let's say if you're looking at, basic humanitarian disaster situation, we know that India has been the first responder always in the region and outside. So while India's expertise lies there, and I think it's important that we also consider the expertise of many of the other countries. Bangladesh, for instance, has a very large pharmaceutical industry growing. We've seen during COVID also, India and others have fallen on and received very adequate support from them. So similarly, for all other countries to put in together, I think, the aspects of what can be, and I think that's, again, these discussions bring forward as to how do we prepare a template because to deal with such exigencies in the, future. Clearly, the BIMSTEC Secretariat is the larger organizational support which can activate much of this. But I think before that, having been through that experience, I think right now, if we can kind of, get all the member countries to commit some kind of a capacity support in terms of a larger cooperation that can happen in any kind of, exigencies like that. And also, I think the individual expertise in each member country is also equally important. I think that needs to be, it is these kind of discussions that, you've initiated and many other think tanks often do, which actually brings forward as to the kind of, best practices that is available to all of us, and then bring it to the table and see how we can. One thing that constantly arises when we are discussing non-traditional security is, of course, the issue of climate change and environmental issues. We know about cross-border issues, and we've talked about often migration and, water sharing matters. But I think what we also, in terms of, I often discuss this when we are discussing these issues, that so far as while we do discuss climate change and environmental issues, something that flows out of it is also the, the agro products, uninterrupted food supplies, medical supplies. This is something, and I'm not talking only about emergency issues or, exigency time, even during normal times. There many times we've seen within the BIMSTEC members and otherwise that there's a particular, food, one particular item which is in short supply. It could be something like critical, like onions or something, like potatoes, which are basically staple diet for most member countries. It is these that we could, discuss as to how, and I think that's how we also need to move the discussion away from water flows. We need to discuss how agro requirements from each member countries and see again which member country has the capacity to support. And I'm just saying, and the conversation has to move a little bit more from not just what is, it's an ad hoc situation, but in the larger, in the annual system, as to what is the requirement of wheat for rice and all of that, and then judiciously use water, because ultimately when we are discussing climate and environmental issues, these are something basic things that we'll have to ensure. And also about supply chains. It's not about supply chains in larger industry level that we are discussing, which unfortunately even within the BIMSTEC we've not been able to kind of put together. But I'm just saying, even on a day-to-day basis, in terms of basic food environment, medical environment requirements, these are something, if we have a larger framework in place, then we'll be able to deal with it. I think that's something, while there are many other aspects, and I think while one particular criticism about BIMSTEC has always been that, at the larger level, at the governmental level, at the state to state level, there's a lot that has been happening in the last 10 years, specifically. But we often feel that people somehow have been a bit disconnected from BIMSTEC. I mean, if people like us who are part of the academic, space obviously deal with it, but I'm saying if you step outside IR, there are very few people who actually involve with it or engage with it or even have awareness for that matter. I'm looking at my own students who don't know at times what the BIMSTEC acronym means. So I'm just saying there has to be that greater awareness. Also, we have to spread it through various support system that we can. And while we've known that some dedicated think tanks have been working on several aspects of the BIMSTEC verticals and sectors, but I think we need to factor in a lot more the local organizations which are working on the ground. Many of the member countries have these non-governmental organizations who have done tremendous good work in terms of, like, for instance, very small issues, large issues like treatment of sewage water. We've seen how some fantastic experiments have been done by small, in particular province or particular district, but we've not been able to move that into a larger template. I think that's something we'll have to do. And I think all of us, and we are Bengal countries, all of us here, that we also have to look at how the quality of water, sedimentation, all of that which falls and flows right into the bay, affecting all of us, and all the maritime awareness issues are all part of the non-traditional. I think, we are slowly, I think that entire distinct area that we had about traditional security and non-traditional security, I think there's a bit of blurring that is now taking place. But at the same time, while there's a blur taking place, it's also extremely positive aspect about the kind of technological cooperation that is in place. And the fact that most of us, able to use the existing satellite technologies that India provides, and also many of the other member states have access to and are able to, that has also helped us monitor many of these, disaster, monitoring and forecasting that has taken place. I think we have to now take it a notch above and see how that can, on a day-to-day basis, kind of provide for that, real-time support system, apart from only just natural disasters. I'm saying on a regular basis, if that can be, and at that level, I would also kind of, urge all of us to work with the network of universities, the local, as I said, institutes and agencies who work on different aspects. They don't necessarily have to work on the Bay, or they have to work on, BIMSTEC or the regional per se. But as I said, the best practices need to be brought in. And I think more collaborations like this. And one thing I would again suggest here before I, discuss the challenges also, which is largely, is about, while at one level, there's a research-oriented, required. I think all of us need to get deep into the actual aspect of things, and all of us with our different expertise can kind of take on one particular vertical and examine it to much greater details. But alongside that, I think both operational as well as organizational support is required. And again, these dialogues are, I know, meant to, build that capacity. And I think that's something, again, many of you involved with, Bay of Bengal member organizations are part of it. But I think it has been, and let's not mince our words about the fact that much of the things that has happened in BIMSTEC has been very slow. And there has been certain countries who, and here I don't hesitate to say that India has been really pushing forward in terms of how we can take it, give it more momentum than it had in the past. So while that has been true, and I think what we also need to internalize and accept that, every state is a different level of development, different levels of capacity. So I think that needs to be kind of, factored in. And I think that's also, while that's also one particular aspect, it's also a challenge because the different capacities, kind of hinder at times in terms of bringing together the common, space. More importantly, also what we've often seen, the internal dynamics often become a hindrance. And whether we are discussing human poverty, whether we're discussing even things like economic backwardness, what is, in Sri Lanka is not the same in Bhutan, for example. I'm just saying these kind of different things need to be factored in, and which is also a particular challenge. And I think whenever we discuss cooperative platforms, we certainly have to first go deep into the challenges to address that gap and then see, of course. And I think there is no doubt about the fact that each member brings in a goodwill towards regional consensus in BIMSTEC. I think that is something so positive within BIMSTEC that each one wants to be, a part of this particular regional process. And then again, as I said, depending on that particular goodwill and the willingness of the member state is certainly an important and extremely critical element in building unity here. But we've always seen, and especially when it comes to non-traditional security issues, that the transboundary, jurisdiction over such things becomes extremely critical. The interstate agreements need to be far more, has to be far more detailed in terms of for it to kind of make any advancement in that. And more importantly, I think at the BIMSTEC, when we are discussing, it's all about multilateral agreements, which is possible. And we often discuss that, within BIMSTEC also, if it's possible to look at minilaterals. Because as I said, each one is in different level of development, different level of requirement. So while we are not missing or we are not losing sight of the bigger picture, but whether we can examine minilateral, especially when it comes to non-traditional security. Because for instance, if we are discussing migration, then clearly there are some countries who don't have that issue. But if we are discussing drugs, again, there's clearly some member countries who don't have that issue. So I'm saying whether we can actually formulate kind of a core groups within BIMSTEC to take that kind of agreement forward. I think it's a fact that whether, as I said, in BIMSTEC on the security platform, the government to government relationship is extremely robust. But again, the non-government sector has to, when it comes to especially the non-traditional security aspects that we are discussing today, the non-government sector is a key factor in terms of bringing together kind of, building that robustness that it's required at this point of time. So I'm going to end here by saying that I think all of us need to put together, heads together, see the best practices that emanate from each member country, collate that, work upon that, and see how that can build together a larger framework for non-traditional security. I'll end here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sreeradha. Let me move to the next speaker, Dr. Segufta Hossain, who is a research director at Bangladesh Institute of International Strategic Studies, specializing in the Peace and Conflict Division. She holds an MSc in Geography and Environment from Jahangir University, Bangladesh, and a Doctor of Philosophy in Geography and Environment from the same university. She has 14 publications cited by well cited, and her works include the first global stock take on climate change issues and challenges, sustainable urban development, where Bangladesh stands, making cities sustainable, challenges and imperatives of Bangladesh, climate compatible development, a Bangladesh perspective. Dr. Hossain, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Pramod. Am I audible? I hope I am audible.
Yes, you're audible.
Oh, thank you. Lots of discussion about BIMSTEC and non-traditional security. Just to sum up, we know that BIMSTEC connects South and Southeast Asia, and it cooperates across multiple sectors, including security, disaster management, and environment. And if we focus on non-traditional threats, these threats are beyond conventional military challenges, and these threats primarily affect human security and development, and these are often transboundary in nature and non-state driven. So the major non-traditional threats that the BIMSTEC region is facing include climate change, natural disasters and environmental degradation, public health emergencies and pandemics, cybersecurity and digital threats, transnational crime and trafficking, and maritime security issues. So the non-traditional threats matter for BIMSTEC region because of the shared geography and ecosystem, cross-border movement of people, goods, and risks, increasing frequency and intensity of disaster, growing digital and economic interdependence. And these threats demonstrate the regional nature of non-traditional threats and the necessity of collective action. Among the non-traditional threats, I would like to focus on climate change as a core non-traditional threat in the BIMSTEC region, because climate change constitutes a multidimensional non-traditional threat affecting human security, economic stability, and regional development. BIMSTEC member states are disproportionately exposed to extreme weather events like cyclones, floods, heat waves. We have seen in 2025, the BIMSTEC region experienced several significant extreme climate events, including severe monsoon flooding across South and Southeast Asia, devastating tropical cyclones, and a major earthquake. Although earthquake is not a climate event, it added to the humanitarian challenges. Sea level rise and coastal degradation, food, water, and livelihood insecurity are some of the insecurities related directly or indirectly to climate change. And these risks are transboundary in nature and need coordinated regional responses. If we focus on the relevance of BIMSTEC in regional climate governance, BIMSTEC provides a sub-regional platform that bridges South and Southeast Asia, and the other comparative advantages include shared ecological system, similar climate vulnerability profiles, and existing cooperation mechanisms in disaster management and environment. Bangladesh, as a country, positions itself as both a climate vulnerable state and a contributor of solutions. So Bangladesh is internationally recognized as one of the most climate vulnerable countries in the world. And despite structural constraints, the country has achieved notable progress in strong disaster preparedness and response system through early warning and evacuation systems, which have significantly reduced cyclone-related mortality. Bangladesh has adopted climate adaptation governance mechanism. There is an expansion of multipurpose cyclone shelters and climate resilient public facilities, and the country has operationalized the domestic climate finance arrangement, such as the Bangladesh Climate Change Trust Fund. The country has experience in community-based resilience building. The country has developed flood and salinity tolerant crop varieties. Apart from this, the country is actively engaged in regional and multilateral forums. These achievements of Bangladesh offer transferable lessons for the BIMSTEC partners. Bangladesh has achieved some international recognition and normative leadership in climate change-related issues to its credit. The country played a leadership role within Climate Vulnerable Forum. It promotes various policies like the Bangladesh Delta Plan 2021, Mujib Climate Prosperity Plan, which link adaptation with development. The country is actively engaged in UNFCCC negotiations and advocates for loss and damage mechanism. The country is recognized as a model for locally led adaptation approaches as well. So Bangladesh's experience demonstrates that climate adaptation is feasible even under resource constraints. And policy lessons from the experience of Bangladesh, which are applicable at the BIMSTEC level, include integration of disaster risk reduction into development planning, community-centered adaptation models, use of domestic financing. The Joint Working Group on Environment and Climate Change is the main institutional mechanism of BIMSTEC to conduct the business of environment and climate change sector. The BIMSTEC Joint Working Group on Environment and Climate Change finalized the plan of action on environment, climate, and climate change in its second meeting, which comprises 3 priority areas: biodiversity, waste management, and climate change. The Memorandum of Association on the establishment of BIMSTEC Center on Weather and Climate was signed on 4th March 2014 during the 3rd BIMSTEC Summit, and the host country agreement between the Government of India and the BIMSTEC Secretariat for establishing the BIMSTEC Center for Weather and Climate in India was signed on 24th August 2023. The objectives of the center are promote and encourage cooperation between BIMSTEC member countries in identified areas of fundamental and applied scientific research in weather prediction and climate modeling, promote scientific capacity building in weather and climate research, encourage and assist the publication of important results of research, obtained within the framework of the BIMSTEC cooperation on weather and climate. However, the activities of this center have not yet been visible. So here I would like to propose some dedicated BIMSTEC climate focused mechanisms. And the BIMSTEC climate focused mechanism could include a BIMSTEC regional climate early warning system for having a coordinated meteorological and disaster information exchange, BIMSTEC Center of Research on Climate Adaptation, which will conduct policy research, training and technical advisory services, BIMSTEC Coastal Resilience Initiative, focusing on ecosystem-based adaptation, mangrove restoration, and coastal livelihood protection. And finally, a BIMSTEC climate finance mechanism, which will act as BIMSTEC climate adaptation financing window. So BIMSTEC member countries could also arrange regional training programs on disaster preparedness and climate adaptation. Member states could exchange experts, researchers, and practitioners, and at the same time, regular joint simulation exercises could be arranged for extreme climate events. BIMSTEC itself could strengthen its governance and institutional capacities by mainstreaming climate security within BIMSTEC's institutional agenda, developing regional protocol on disaster response and humanitarian assistance, and strengthening the BIMSTEC Secretariat's technical capacity on climate issues. And the challenges and strategic considerations that BIMSTEC may face while addressing the non-traditional threats include uneven national capacities across member states, financing and technology access constraints, and challenges related to political and institutional coordination. However, these challenges could be overcome by beginning with small, high-impact pilot projects and build confidence through measurable outcomes, and finally, gradually scale up cooperation mechanisms. Bangladesh could play an important role in this aspect as agenda setter on regional climate adaptation discourse, provider of policy knowledge and technical expertise, and bridge between global climate diplomacy and sub-regional implementation. However, if I summarize the discussion, so non-traditional threats are central to regional security and development in the BIMSTEC region. And BIMSTEC as a regional organization has untapped potential to address these challenges. And climate change represents the most pressing non-traditional threat for the BIMSTEC region. Bangladesh's climate achievement offer a practical and replicable policy model, and Bangladesh's experiences and priorities can meaningfully shape BIMSTEC's future role in climate change-related non-traditional threats. And finally, strengthened and climate-responsive BIMSTEC can significantly change regional resilience and human security. With this, I end my presentation here. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Segufta Hossain. May I now invite Dr. Lobzang Dorji, who is the Country Associate of DCAF, which is Geneva Center for Security Sector Governance, and Country Coordinator for Butan Education and Skill Training and International Program. He holds Bachelor of Arts in History and Buddhist Literature from Sreeradha College, Royal University of Bhutan. He received the South Asia Foundation Manjit Singh Group Scholar Award and Junior Research Fellowship from 2014 to 2016 for a Master's in South Asian Studies. He holds PhD in Anthropology at Vilnius University, Lithuania, and a certified sinologist by the Ministry of Culture and Religious Affairs, Bhutan. Dr. Dorji, over to you.
Good evening. Greetings from Kingdom of Bhutan, distinguished panelists, fellow delegates. It is an honor to represent the Kingdom of Bhutan in this vital webinar and dialogue. I speak not just for a nation, but for a philosophy that true security is found in balance, resilience, and collective well-being. My talk today will frame non-traditional security challenge through unique lenses, that of a small, landlocked, carbon-negative Himalayan state. I will argue that for BIMSTEC to succeed, it must listen to the mountain, as their fate determines the security of entire Bay of Bengal. Our core philosophy in Bhutan, we do not chase GDP alone. We pursue G&H, gross national happiness, a balanced development of sustainable economy, environmental conservation, cultural vitality, and enhancement of good governance. Why this matter for security? This makes our definition for security inherently holistic and non-traditional. A secure Bhutan is not just militarily safe, it is climate resilient, socially stable, economically sovereign, and culturally confident. So, for us, BIMSTEC is our bridge from the high Himalaya to the blue ocean. It is our strategic pathway to regional integration, but this bridge must be resilient to the storm of 21st century. Let me outline our traditional threat landscape, which is acute and interconnected. Number one, in climate change, we are carbon negative but hyper vulnerable. Our glaciers are retreating, forming unstable lakes. A single glacier outburst flood gulf can the wipe out communities, destroy hydropower plants, which is our economic lifeline, and send a catastrophic floods and downstream to India, Bangladesh, and our security is literally melting. In terms of hydropower paradox, our clean energy export funds schools and hospitals. But this model is fragile, vulnerable to climate-altered river flow and market shifts. Water security for us means energy security for region and vice versa. In terms of biological security, our successful COVID-19 response marks a deep dependency. We rely on medical supply chain to neighboring nations such as India. Our dense forests are a reservoir of biodiversity, but also a potential source of zoonotic spillover. Lastly, in terms of digital frontier, as we now digitize our government and economy, we become a target for cybercrime. Our small size means a simple major attack could cripple our system. For Bhutan, these are not separate issues. They are syndemic of risks. Climate stress affect water, which affect energy, which affect economy, which creates social vulnerability. This interconnectedness is what BIMSTEC must address. Now, there are areas of alignment. We acknowledge and appreciate the foundation. Yet, the BIMSTEC Center for Weather and Climate is not a technical project for us. It is an early warning lifeline for gloves. Environment and climate sector aligns with our soul. We see a platform to advocate for valuing the Himalaya as the region is vital for water tower. The digital health initiative can help a small, remote nation leapfrog in healthcare delivery. And these are some of the view from Himalayan nation state Bhutan. However, from a vantage point, there are critical gaps remains. Landlocked blind spot. BIMSTEC discourse is often maritime. We must equally talk about landlocked supply chain, security, resilient digital corridor, and energy diversification for mountain states. Equity in capacity building. Workshops are good, but we need tailored, sustained support in glacier hydrology, cyber forensic for micro states, and biosurveillance, not one size fits all the program. The non-traditional agenda risks being set by immediate coastal priorities, the slow burn existential crisis of the Himalaya, the source for 10 major river system, must have equal billing. From charity to justice, we need to move from aid-based support to a framework for reciprocal responsibility. The downstream benefit of upstream Himalaya conservation must be formally recognized. So therefore, there need to be a framework for action. The Bhutan's proposal, my proposal is institutional reform for inclusion. We propose concrete, actionable ideas to make BIMSTEC architecture hear our voices. A BIMSTEC vulnerability index. This should guide the allocation of any future resilience fund. It must factor in ecological fragility, economic exposure, and responsibility capacity. Support should not only flow risks to those most at risk, and the mountain and landlocked state decks within the proposed BIMSTEC Center for Non-Traditional Security. This ensure our specific crisis, glacier melt, and landslide corridor security are never off the table. And let's measure BIMSTEC success not just in GDP growth or treaty sign, but in community resilience, ecosystem health, and well-being across the region. Bhutan is ready to lead by example as a pilot nation, a BIMSTEC watershed resilient initiative, a flagship project in Bhutan that combines climate science using our glacier monitoring expertise, disaster risk reduction, implementing our community-based preparedness model, sustainable financing, piloting systematic payment for ecosystem service. Now let us create a model where downstream beneficiaries contribute to upstream Himalayan conservation, a tangible to security beyond the borders. Let's build a network which focuses on mindful digitization, promoting hygiene, digital literacy, and ethical tech governance for a small state. We can share our experiences in building a secure digital identity and governmental infrastructure. Our foreign policy of neutrality and principle is an asset. The breach builder route. In moment of bilateral tension between larger members, Bhutan can serve as a trusted, neutral convener to keep technical, non-traditional security cooperation on track. BIMSTEC must formally partner with specialized bodies like ICIMOT to inject world-class mountain expertise into our project. So we wish to transition. Let us position Bhutan as a regional knowledge, a hub for climate resilient hydropower and sustainable forest management. We will offer fellowship and training, sharing our GNH-based policy experiences. And we are pragmatic. We understand the challenges. Sovereignty is not non-negotiable, and all cooperation must respect our constitutional values and GNH. We engage as a sovereign equal, and we will insist that BIMSTEC non-traditional security agenda remains a technical, humanitarian, and ecological space. So my final message is the security in the Bay of Bengal begins in the Himalaya. The water, the climate stability, ecological balance, it all flows from these peaks. If the mountains are insecure, the delta cannot be secure. Do not view Bhutan and Nepal as a remote outlier. See us as the canaries in the coal mine for regional climate and water security. Our vulnerabilities today foreshadow the challenges of the entire tomorrow. By genuinely integrating the Himalayan perspective with emphasis on justice, reciprocity, and holistic well-being, BIMSTEC can build a resilient model that is not just only stronger, but just and sustainable. So therefore, security beyond border is not an abstract concept in Thimphu or in Bhutan. It is our daily reality. We stand ready to complete the secure future with you. The strength of our region truly does flow from the high peak to the deepest sea. Let us protect the flow together. Thank you, Karin Chella.
Thank you, Dr. Dorji. May I invite Colonel Nalin Herath? Sir, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Am I laudable?
Yes, sir.
I hope the slide also visible.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Good evening, General Secretary Dr. Pandey and Dr. Pramod and all the eminent speakers and the participants. Thank you very much for this opportunity. So I'm going to talk from the Sri Lankan perspective about the BIMSTEC non-traditional challenges. So I hope that everyone understand what is non-traditional challenge and non-traditional security. So today, security is very expensive, both security and peace. Today we are partnering, and the entire world is today hunger for the security also. Because earlier in the traditional approach, it was we were expecting kind of external threats for our whatever the countries or the nations. Now it is beyond borders. Now most of the security threats are non-traditional. So now we have to think out of the box. So non-traditional security threats are actually challenges that go beyond conventional military conflicts, right? They include like terrorism, human trafficking, climate change, cybercrime, and pandemic. We have the experience of COVID-19. So non-traditional security threats, it directly affect for the human security. So today we are really worrying about the human security, all the countries and the leaders and the expert and the think tank like us. We talk a lot about security. And the other thing is economic stability. This is very important factor for anything. So when the economic situation is in a fragile situation, that everything will be in trouble. And even the national development also. So these NTS are very important, challenging. Then these threats often cross borders, making them regional rather than purely national concern. Then effective response to non-traditional threats require collaboration and intelligence sharing among countries. And currently we are doing it. And BIMSTEC provides a platform for member states to collectively address and mitigate these emerging challenges. So importance of non-traditional threats in South Asia. So we know that we are highly vulnerable to non-traditional security threats because we should not forget South Asia harbor or South Asia claims for 1/4 of the global population. 22% of the global population is within the South Asian region. Now you can understand how it is a kind of very complex situation, in a very complex situation. And NTS threats pose significant risks to economic stability across the region, and they have profound social impacts affecting communities and human development. Then environmental consequences, including climate change, and very recently, especially Sri Lanka experienced the worst disaster of the climate, let's say a natural disaster, because we experienced, some of the areas experienced 500 millimeter of rainfall within 1 day. Within 1 day. Now we can understand so how the rain patterns and everything has been changed. And many threats are cross-border, making unilateral action insufficient. Then regional cooperation and integrated strategies are essential to effectively manage and mitigate these challenges. And if I talk about Sri Lanka and BIMSTEC, if I give you a general overview, Sri Lanka is an active BIMSTEC member, contributor to various regional initiatives. And very recently, Secretary General also, Dr. Pandey, visited Sri Lanka, and he engaged with a lot of, especially foreign ministry and some of the think tanks, and he delivered a special address at the Bandaranaike Diplomatic Institute also. And there also he mentioned about how the future of the BIMSTEC especially. So the Sri Lanka plays a key role in promoting peace and stability within the region. And its strategic location in the Indian Ocean makes vital for maritime security, because we have a very large sea area. Comparative, if I compare with the landmass, we have the sea area more than 8 times larger than our landmass. Sri Lanka actively supports economic cooperation and trade among BIMSTEC nations. And Sri Lanka participates in joint programs addressing non-traditional security threats. So Sri Lanka is also in the process of making or developing our national security strategy. So in that national security strategy, Sri Lanka has given enough attention and prominence for this, addressing how we are going to address and face and mitigate these non-traditional security threats. So Sri Lanka's engagement strengthens regional integration and collaborative problem solving. So Sri Lanka's strategic interest in non-traditional security threats, and Sri Lanka aims to protect critical maritime routes and key ports in the Indian Ocean. And the country is committed to combating transnational crimes, including human trafficking and terrorism. So human trafficking also very alarming state now, but now at the moment, Ministry of Defense, along with other stakeholders, especially with the UN and UNDP and all. So Sri Lanka has taken a lot of initiatives to prevent and mitigate this human trafficking. So now Defense Ministry has established a special task force under Secretary Defense in this regard. The strengthening disaster preparedness and rapid response mechanism is a top priority. And there are some criticisms are going on about the way Sri Lanka handled or faced with the very recent situation, disaster, especially rain and the floods. And but anyway, what should I must elaborate, and I must mention that Disaster Management Center, along with other stakeholders and all other interesting parties. So they have taken precautions. They prepared it, but there may be some shortfalls. I agree with that. So Sri Lanka works to enhance regional stability through active participation in BIMSTEC initiatives, and Sri Lanka seeks to promote collaboration and intelligence sharing among member states. And protecting national security while contributing to regional resilience is central to Sri Lanka's non-regional security strategy. So what are the key areas of NTS cooperation? So counterterrorism. So terrorism it has become a kind of common problem for the entire region. So even if you take especially Sri Lanka was fighting for a war, and Sri Lanka was fighting 3 decades of war with the terrorists, and after 30 years of time, Sri Lanka was able to militarily defeat them, but still their ideology is existing. So that is still Sri Lanka needs to concern about those threats, because ideology has not been purely eradicated. And Sri Lanka actively participates in intelligence sharing and joint operations with the BIMSTEC members. And human trafficking. So the country strengthened law enforcement and supports policy framework for cross-border cooperation. I mentioned about the National Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force under Ministry of Defense. And then disaster management, Sri Lanka leads preparedness programs, training exercises, and regional drills. Then the cyber security. National initiatives focus on infrastructure protection, awareness campaigns, and regional collaboration. So these key areas demonstrate Sri Lanka's commitment to addressing diverse non-traditional security threats. And BIMSTEC provides a platform for coordinated action, ensuring effective regional response to non-traditional security challenges. And today, I think cyber security has become one of the key area for all the countries to focus, because most of our infrastructure has been connected to cyber. So entire region is into digitalization. So when you are in the digital mode, so you are very vulnerable for kind of cyber attacks and cyber threats. So this is one of the areas you need to handle it, because otherwise what will happen if your cyber domain is not protected, if not secured, then entire things will be vulnerable for your other invaders. So if I talk about counterterrorism initiatives, Sri Lanka actively participates in intelligence sharing programs among BIMSTEC countries. The country engaged to joint training workshops and exercises to strengthen regional counterterrorism capacity. We do it different members, especially not only the BIMSTEC members, other members also. Sri Lanka's experience in past counterterrorism operations provide valuable lessons for the region. It's a good case study for entire region. And maritime security initiatives help safeguard critical shipping routes in the Indian Ocean. This is I must say this is another challenging task for Sri Lanka, because Sri Lanka, everyone knows that Sri Lanka had a setback when it comes to their economy. 2002, the country was in a very difficult era. There was a public protest, and the legally elected government was toppled, and the president had to leave the country. Then again, what happened? So as per the constitution, then another new president came. Then a new president had to deal with other parties, and he had to run the country another two and a half years. Then in the meantime, Sri Lanka, now at the moment, Sri Lanka under IMF bailout. So still, Sri Lanka is vulnerable. So we can't say that it's exact 100% Sri Lanka economy is now in the right track, but still there is a long way to go, because we need to repay our debts in 2028. Sri Lanka was able to restructure our loan payments, but after 2028, we need to pay 13 billion US dollars. It's a very challenging task. It's going to be a challenging task. So what I want to emphasize was, when the country is in economic crisis, it's a challenging task to secure your maritime area. So maritime security is a very expensive business because when you have a very large sea area, you need to always vigilant. You need to use all the resources, naval fleet. You need to always sail them, and it consumes a lot of fuel and other resources. So money is a machine, but we need to do that. And in the meantime, that's why Sri Lanka is trying to modernize. It's not modernize, trying to restructure, like say, right sides its military and trying to embrace with the technological advancement. So with the technological advancement, we are trying to reduce that so manual surveillance systems and how we are going to use technology for that task. So border security measures are enhanced through regional coordination and cooperation, and these efforts collectively contribute to a safer and more secure South Asian region. So combating human trafficking. So Sri Lanka engaged in regional agreements to prevent trafficking, and strong national anti-trafficking laws are in place at the moment, and monitoring systems are active through National Human Trafficking Task Force at Ministry of Defense level, and collaboration with BIMSTEC neighbors enhances cross-border enforcement. And I think I think there was an incident in that cyber villages. Some of the cyber villages were located in Myanmar. Even Myanmar government did not have access to those groups, so they were operating illegally. So what they did, these cyber crimes people, so these perpetrators, they involved with a lot of human trafficking from various countries like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and in other countries. And these humans, they actually they had a very kind of effective mechanisms to recruit people, and they offered very attractive packages, benefits, and with that motivation, they used to take them through different borders and cross different countries and take them to these cyber villages. And they have been used to, especially for money scam crimes. And they had been ill-treated and tortured. And then what we did, we started communicating with the Myanmar government, and then with the combined effort, we were able to almost get down nearly 60 Sri Lankan citizens back to Sri Lanka from these cyber villages. So now we can understand how much they are organized. So joint operation rescue and protect victims, then public awareness campaigns reduce vulnerability. So actually Sri Lanka is actively engaging with these awareness campaigns with all these United Nations and other stakeholders and other NGOs. And successful case studies demonstrate effectiveness. So with disaster management and climate security, today climate security is it has become a real. So now the entire world is experiencing it now. And Sri Lanka implements early warning systems and conducts joint disaster management drills. So now Sri Lanka is getting a lot of assistance from different countries. And so in this regard, now we are going to get some Dopplers from Japan. So likewise, and we have a very tsunami alarm system. We have 77 tsunami alarm systems. So at the moment, no one is functioning. So now we are looking into it. And the country leads regional efforts to climate adaptation and resilience initiatives. And Sri Lanka has actively managed floods, landslides, and other climate-related disasters. But very recent experience, I think, worst disaster in the history. And entire country was affected except 2-3 districts, the southern part. All of the rest of the entire part was affected. The collaboration with BIMSTEC members strengthens regional disaster preparedness. I think as a region, I think we need to have a kind of collaboration and formulate a very effective mechanism. Community awareness programs improve resilience to natural hazards. Leadership in drills and climate response reinforces regional stability and cooperation. And the cyber security efforts, Sri Lanka has strengthened national policies to address evolving cyber threats. Emerging threats include AI-based attacks. This is very serious topic we need to address. Then hacking and cyber terrorism. And BIMSTEC cooperation facilitates sharing intelligence on advanced cyber threats. Then joint training programs, build skills to counter AI-driven and sophisticated attacks. And cyber initiatives safeguard critical government, financial, and communication networks. Active regional collaboration enhances resilience against modern digital threats. What are the challenges and limitations? So limited financial and technical resources hinder effective non-traditional security threat responses. So financial constraints also need to be looked at. And then variations in national capacity to create coordination challenges among BIMSTEC members. Then political differences can slow decision making and policy implementation. So political differences, yes, of course, there are differences, but these differences should not be hinder or compromise the security apparatus. Then emerging threats such as climate disaster and cyber attacks require adaptive strategies. So we have to be very proactive, not the reactive. So we have been doing reactive. Now we cannot do with the reactive mechanism strategy. We need to be proactive. And strengthening collaboration and resource sharing is essential to overcome these limitations. And there are a couple of recommendations. So enhance regional coordination, NTS task forces, real-time threat sharing, very important. And strengthen legal frameworks, harmonize laws, joint enforcement. Then invest in capacity building, training, exchange programs, joint exercises, and boost technological capabilities and cyber defense, maritime surveillance, early warning system. I think in this case, India can take a lead in this regard, and Australia and the Thailand also. And promote public awareness campaigns on trafficking, cyber hygiene, disaster preparedness, and lead strategic initiatives, take proactive role in BIMSTEC and DS projects. And in the conclusion, so Sri Lanka plays a pivotal role in addressing non-traditional security threats within BIMSTEC. So leveraging its strategic location and active participation to enhance regional peace, stability, and resilience. So through collaboration in counterterrorism, human trafficking, and disaster management, as well as emerging areas such as cybersecurity, Sri Lanka strengthens collective regional security. So emerging threats, including climate-related disasters and advanced cyber attacks, require continuous adaptation, innovation, and resource sharing among member states. So Sri Lanka's leadership and proactive engagement position it as a key driver of regional cooperation, highlighting the importance of sustained BIMSTEC collaboration for a secure, stable, and resilient South Asia. Thank you very much. If there is anything, I will answer during the Q&A session. Thank you for the listening.
Thank you so much, Colonel Herath. May I now invite Seksan Anantasirikiat, who is currently Senior Researcher at the International Studies Center and Director of Public Relations, Korean Association of Thai Studies. He also serves as member of the Foreign Affairs Subcommittee, Thai Journalist Association, member of the Subcommittee of International Affairs, the Press Council of Thailand, Social Media Coordinator, Journal of Public Diplomacy, and advisor to the Regional Studies Association in Thailand. His research interests cover Korea and ASEAN studies, public diplomacy, and national strategy for middle and small powers. Mr. Seksan, over to you.
Greetings, Sawadee Krab. Thank you very much for your kind introduction, Dr. Pramod, and invitation by the NIICE. I wish to start my speech by saying that BIMSTEC has an impressive progress of institutionalization compared to other regional groupings or sub-regional groupings. I could say that we have plans set up there. We already have platforms, cooperation, dialogues, conversations on relevant matters, relevant issues. So I think this provides a very good fundamental framework for the future that we have. And to continue for the next decade, Thailand, as a BIMSTEC chairmanship, kind of set up the vision on the Bangkok BIMSTEC Vision 2030 that highlights three key issues. First is a prosperous BIMSTEC. This includes the signing of the agreement on maritime transport cooperation, which will reduce shipping costs and improve supply chain efficiency, enabling products to be more competitive and expanding new opportunities, particularly in South Asia. Second is that is relevant to today's topic, a resilient BIMSTEC. That this will support cooperation on non-traditional security issues such as transnational crimes. At the Leaders Summit they also adopted the BIMSTEC leaders' joint statement on the impact of the earthquake in Myanmar and Thailand on 28th March 2025, proposed by Thailand. This reaffirms the collaboration in disaster management. Last but not least is Open BIMSTEC. This focuses on promoting the role of the private sector and enhancing people-to-people contact. In April 2025, Thailand also organized the BIMSTEC Young Gen Forum to further empower the next generation of young entrepreneurs from across the region. I think this will help answer our participants' question on this, on how young generation can participate in this BIMSTEC process. Next, I wish to prioritize some key issues on nutritional security that we should have a closer look on. First, I think is on climate change. I totally agree with what Professor Segufta from BIISS and also Mr. Lobzang, Dorji, Butan, and also this speaker from Sri Lanka have mentioned that climate change is a security issue that requires socio-cultural solution. This is about survival. It's not just about environmental issue. It's about survival, that we can live on our land, we can enjoy our good life there. In the future, BIMSTEC countries will face key 5 issues under the climate change issue. First could be energy security. Second could be food security. Third could be health security. Fourth could be resource scarcity. And the last could be climate-induced displacement. So these issues are relevant, and I totally agree that we should prioritize on the issue. There is a question in the box asking about how can we cooperate on this issue without kind of intervening in state sovereignty. I can bring the case of the Mekong region, that the Mekong River Commission developed a mobile application, so-called One Mekong. You can try downloading from your mobile phone. In this mobile phone, it provides a real-time information on what has been going on, what is happening, such as drought, flooding, and also heat wave. So this can be one thing that we apply digital technology to improve literacy on climate and also support. And I totally agree that we need stronger support on this matter. The second issue could be online scam. You may have heard that these 2 days, Thailand has been organizing the international conference on the global partnership against online scams. And the joint statement, Bangkok joint statement, has just been released 3 hours ago. I wish to emphasize on some key issues here. I think that is relevant to what can we build on for the BIMSTEC framework. This joint statement aims to formalize a worldwide commitment to tackling online fraud, emphasizing stronger international cooperation, enhanced intelligence sharing, including AI tools, financial disruption, victim-centric protection, and holding digital platforms accountable. Moving beyond discussion to concrete actions and building a comprehensive global response against transnational scam networks that exploit Southeast Asia and BIMSTEC and beyond. There are some key themes that I wish to highlight here. First could be global partnership. The idea is that no single nation or country can fight these complex crimes alone, necessitating a unified global front. Second is on action-oriented focus, that the goal is to move past good intentions to tangible results, focusing on dismantling criminal networks. Third is on the AI, that countries should acknowledge the use of tech like AI by scammers and the need to leverage similar tools, AI, big data, for detection and prosecution, alongside digital platform responsibility. Next is financial disruption that focuses on cutting off illicit funds through better cooperation between financial intelligence units and regulators. Fifth is a victim-centered approach by prioritizing protection, rehabilitation, and integration of scam victims. Sixth is integration with existing frameworks, using and strengthening existing mechanisms like the Bali process, ASEAN UN Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime, and also BIMSTEC framework. And last but not least is political view. I totally agree with Dr. Sipana Banerjee and Ms. Anantasirikiat Chowdhury from the Observer Research Foundation. They wrote an article or published on the ORF platform that BIMSTEC already has MOU with the UN ODC on this issue. And I think Thailand's initiative could strengthen BIMSTEC framework as the MOU between BIMSTEC and UNODC represents a pragmatic shift towards better managing the crimes. And through this integrated program in Southeast Asia, UNODC has developed tools for the same and very similar schemes that this joint statement has addressed already. By partnering with UNODC, BIMSTEC can access international databases, best practices, training modules, and technical assistance that is relevant to make our laws harmonized, our institutions strengthened, and also enhance enforcement efficacy. This partnership also addresses a fundamental regional gap, such as inadequate intelligence infrastructure, joint operational frameworks. Criminal networks are increasingly transnational. They exploit legal loopholes, fragmented jurisdictional systems, and digital domain to evade detection. So BIMSTEC, while committed to cooperation, lacks the institutional capacity to build and manage sophisticated intelligence or enforcement mechanisms alone. So I think this joint statement could create synergy between BIMSTEC and Thailand's initiative to combat these online scams and also transnational organized crime. Another issue I wish to emphasize here is maritime security. Although the region has been peaceful without major maritime conflict with military operation, there are diverse emerging challenges that should be highlighted. First, ongoing geopolitical conflict could trigger congestion in maritime transport and trade route, as already happened in some areas of the world due to geopolitical conflict. Second, incidents of piracy and arms robbery against ships have increased. Third, freedom of navigation and innocent passage could be affected. Given the circumstances that ongoing conflicts in various areas around the world, there is a possibility that any state may take industrial action to enforce its rules or regulations at sea that are not accepted by others. And this is why we need a stronger BIMSTEC voice on this kind of the promotion of the freedom of navigation. An additional maritime security issue at which BIMSTEC should take a closer look is cyber attacks against ships and port facilities. Maritime security also has an environmental dimension. Threats to the region's depleting fish stocks are on the rise, with marine debris being one of the most vexing factors affecting its sustainability. The volume of solid waste and marine debris generated across the BIMSTEC region has rapidly increased in recent years, with the region having some of the largest plastic waste generators. Another example of an environmental incident that affects maritime security is oil spill. Existing mechanism could pave the way for closer and more substantive cooperation on maritime security issues, such as maritime domain awareness or MDA, to address maritime threats in the region, and maritime spatial planning or MSP to promote effective and sustainable use of maritime domain in the future. Moreover, rigorous implementation of agreed measures through various frameworks should be considered. Third is on the trade issues, that is the root cause of non-traditional security issues in the region. If Europe and US are doubling down on green and digital transitions, BIMSTEC countries may think about going down a similar path. Pending another fast-track process apart from the trade liberalization and the work on power grid interconnection, the roads and rails to unlock the intra-regional potential, digital payment system linkage, and regional disaster relief efforts. As the group figures how to build upon the consensus forged on other South-South platforms mentioned earlier, BIMSTEC may need a stronger injection of political energy to develop its own development fund, along with a more prominent international profile to boost its integration to match the track 1.5 billion strong population that is relying perhaps too heavily on imports and exports of critical and essential items with external regions. To be realistic, the existing bureaucracies in BIMSTEC countries may need to undergo massive reforms in order to deliver the results according to the visions laid out. This cannot be assumed to take place easily given the ongoing political challenges in BIMSTEC members. To remind, the grouping has held only the 5-6 summits over the around 28-year time span, and with irregular meetings at the ministerial and senior official levels. While the quantity of meetings is not the guarantee for quality, the consistency and continuity of these meetings or the degree to which BIMSTEC mechanism have been institutionalized in the member countries' bureaucratic system can have direct impact on its weight and relevance. Private sector participation in BIMSTEC's policy making remains patchy and underdeveloped. Its business forum may need rejuvenation and systematic support from the government sector. Only when the private sector and the population see the real potential and benefits from BIMSTEC integration will the grouping find and retain its political will and administrative traction. Taken together, it can be said that BIMSTEC has numerous potential benefits for its member countries, such as more room to grow for intra-regional trade and connectivity that could combat non-traditional security issues. If breakthroughs can be made in enhancing an economic integration through a free trade pact and infrastructural cooperation to grow from strength to strength, the political will and bureaucratic tenacity in all BIMSTEC countries are needed to avert the stagnation experienced by the South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation or SAARC, or any unnecessary duplication with another sub-regional military initiative like the BBIN, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, and Nepal. Committing to the scheduled date of the summit is a step in the right institutional direction for BIMSTEC, whose members should do all they can to capitalize on the geographical synergy of South Asia and Southeast Asia around the Bay of Bengal, a strategic location that has under-realized its potential and hence should no longer allow to continue that way. So I wish to I'm here for any further comments and discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Seksan, for your remarks. Now here we come to the end of all the presentation. We still have around 30 minutes. So let me take a few questions. We have got lots of questions on Zoom chat as well as on Facebook Live. And there are lots of questions on given the increasing climate-induced disaster in Bay of Bengal region, how can BIMSTEC strengthen regional preparedness and early warning system while respecting national sovereignty? So there are lots of questions related to national sovereignty and how the countries can come together and deal with something like climate change, which every country in the region is prone to. Bangladesh has flood, India has its own climate issues, Nepal and all. So there's lots of questions on that. Second, we have also got lots of questions from Nepali participants that after this Gen Z movement and then the similar youth movement was there in Bangladesh, Sri Lanka has gone through. So what role can youth, civil society and research institutions, think tanks and university play in strengthening BIMSTEC security? So that is second. Third, we have got some question on how can the BIMSTEC countries can develop to improve real-time cooperation in addressing non-security threats, especially related to terrorism and climate change, which has a huge implication on the region, like every country is suffering from these issues. So let me go with the same order, and then we'll take if there are any questions left, because there are a few more questions popping up, so we'll take it at the second round. So may I now first invite our speaker from Myanmar, Mr. Myint. Sir, over to you. Mr. Myint, are you there? Sir, we can see you, but we can't. Maybe you have to unmute.
So I don't have a question, and thank you very much for this organized meeting. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I can move to the next speaker, Dr. Sreeradha Datta. Ma'am, over to you.
There's so many questions. Let me first look at the youth thing. I think that as I mentioned, that while at the government level, the interaction engagement at BIMSTEC is very robust and has done many, positive developments. At the public, popular level, BIMSTEC is not very well known. And I think another reason is that there has been very limited youth engagement. And I think if we can offer a BIMSTEC fellowship, we can offer, some kind of a engagement where all the 7 country members can meet each other at a common, place annually. They could all apply for that. It could be a 7 days residential program or something like that. And, one particular university or a think tank can be gone on board. So it can go down, doing the rounds of 7 countries. I think no matter what we discuss, youth engagement is the core to taking the, dialogue forward, because they are really the stakeholders here. So I completely agree that, we must, all the member countries of BIMSTEC have a far greater understanding of what is happening on the external world. But if you ask, I mean, while of course I do understand Bangladesh and Nepal are far more, engaged with India at a certain level, but in terms of how many members know what is happening in Thailand, for instance, or how many Myanmar youths know what is happening in Nepal and Bhutan, for instance, I don't think member countries, especially at the youth level, know each other well enough. I think that is something we really need to address. In terms of somebody's talking about sovereignty, but we all understand, the center that has come up in Indian Gurgaon, which is basically, discussing maritime cooperation and all kinds of negative elements, and all member countries have signed up for it. In fact, Sri Lanka is also, I think, building a similar functional organization for these kind of things. So it is now possible, and I think the best part of BIMSTEC is that none of us feel threatened within each other. So, there is no such problem among the cooperative framework. The problem in BIMSTEC is quite obvious, that we have not been able to, we have dialogue, we have all agreed on the common issues, but finally how much has been actually implemented in terms of a cooperative framework, in terms of taking things forward, that has been a challenge. In terms of one of the I think big factor here is funding. Especially post-COVID, we've seen a huge, I mean, the fact that we are doing this on a, webinar mode. While, of course, COVID has taught us webinar mode, but, some of us who've seen how physical interaction has contributed to greater understanding of each other's issues. And the fact that you can stay together for 2 nights, 3 days, constantly interacting, that has a value which over the years we've seen there's been a withdrawal of funding from, for many of these programs. That's something I don't know how it's possible, because I think each one has, financial crunch and issues like that. While webinar, of course, fills in that gap. At least some kind of interaction and engagement is possible. But I always say this, that there is no way that you can actually, do the things which is possible in the physical interaction. So I think whether it's a small setup or whatever, however much we can at the individual level, at organization level, to try and encourage that. And I think, this regional preparedness, early warning system, I think that's in place here already. And I think BIMSTEC member countries have all benefited from that, what we have in Noida actually. Noida Center has, given real-time information constantly to members. And I think that satellite imagery that India has and is being able to share with everybody else has been a very positive part of the engagement that we've seen within the member countries. But again, it's a work in progress. Many such things need to be developed in a far more detailed way. I don't think anybody doesn't understand the criticality of these issues. And as I mentioned in the earlier comments that I made, that while security cooperation, of course, is government to government, non-traditional security is far more, it's a very fluid space. And I think we need far more stakeholders and other interested parties to be part of this. So it's really, we'll have to, do a kind of a bottoms up approach. I think that's something much more required in the NTS framework. If there's anything more in terms of specificity, because there are too many questions here, I'm just wondering if there's anything particular, Pramod, do let me know, I'll address that.
Sure, ma'am. We've got some question on India. I'll come back to India.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Dr. Segufta, please.
Thank you. Actually, the climate change related threats or issues are transboundary in nature, and these issues cannot be addressed by an individual country alone, and all the member states need to show their willingness and come forward for addressing these issues. And a center on weather and climate has been established with some promising objectives, although I didn't find any what they have done yet. But these mechanisms need to be properly operationalized for getting the benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Dorji has left, so Seksan, over to you if you want to add anything. Seksan.
Yeah, I like the idea of the bottom-up approach that we should take in national security, and I agree with Professor Sreeradha that everything has already put in place, and we are ready for that. But perhaps what we need more is communication to make it relevant to our people, because there is a missing link between policymakers. They come and they discuss about cooperation from their perspective with some research, maybe from the think tank forum or dialogue. But it seems that the general people, common people, we don't realize about what is happening and what the importance of this ongoing framework, ongoing discussion. Perhaps we need to link more communication strategy, public diplomacy strategy. I think that's very important. Try to build a network of people, maybe like pro BIMSTEC people, and see how they can provide some ideas and develop on that and make it more like bottom-up approach to make these issues more relevant and effective to them. Yeah.
Thank you. Let me go to the second round. There are a few questions coming on India, like how does BIMSTEC fit in India's neighborhood first policy and India's Act East policy? I mean, does BIMSTEC fit into these Indian foreign policy perspectives? Second is that to what extent does India view BIMSTEC as a strategic alternative to SARC, especially when we know that SARC is not functioning well? What is the hope that BIMSTEC brings to not only to India, but for the whole region? This is the question that is also asked to the Bangladeshi speaker, like, can we really leverage on BIMSTEC at the time when SARC has not been functional? So maybe I'd just like to request Dr. Sreeradha, Datta, and Segufta to answer these two questions. Dr. Datta, over to you.
Thanks, Pramod. What was the first question, sorry?
The first question was like, how does BIMSTEC fit into India's neighborhood first policy and Act East policy?
Sure. So as I said in my initial remarks, that it's quite an understood matter straight from the time Prime Minister Modi called the BIMSTEC members at Goa on the sideline summit that happened, and there has been a huge push from India to take things forward. I think there's no doubt about that front. So for India, it's an extremely important regional organization, and why we've also now started looking at also cross currents within Bay of Bengal, like we are looking at other aspects of the maritime domain and issues. We're looking at, as I said, we have a huge focus on the security cooperation, the weather forecasting organization, the institute that we built in Noida, the Maritime Security Institute that we built in Gurgaon. All of it is hugely part of the BIMSTEC, the fact that we want to take this forward. And I do admit that while India has been pushing it, at times we often felt that some other countries have been not as forthcoming with that kind of a support. I mean, for instance, it took 20 years, right, to have a charter in place. And the fact that we've signed on the MOU of the transportation agreement. But if you ask me, what has the progress been on that? So while the many aspects, and we have many verticals and sectoral engagement that's happening, as I said, at the government level, yes, certain things, but India at the government level, at the leadership level, I think has absolutely no doubt about the fact that BIMSTEC is one of their core interest areas. And it dovetails very well with the neighborhood first and Act East. Also, if you look at the kind of transportation, we look at the energy thing that we are now working on. Bangladesh and Nepal has signed an energy agreement, which is through the overhead Indian line. So clearly a sub-regional cooperation, something like I mentioned, that many-lateral issues or aspects are also coming up. And I think that's a great way to focus, because often, as I said, the interest and the capacity and the wherewithal of the 7 members at a certain different levels. And, there is no point not admitting that and accepting that. So at times, these mini laterals are extremely important. But I think there is no doubt about the fact that India is certainly has over the last 10, 15 years given a lot of focus, and much of the infrastructure, and also if you look at the functional aspects, has been part of one dovetailing into the other. That's something that has happened in terms. What is the second? Sorry, I'm missing the link here. The second one was.
Second question was like BIMSTEC as a strategic alternative to SARC.
Oh, okay. So, while of course it's a very popular notion that SARC wasn't functioning, we all know, and I just want to bust the myth here. While, it's the political differences between India and Pakistan, well known to everybody, I think, is one of the reasons that SARC hasn't functioned as it was expected. And I do often talk about the fact that SARC had a far more popular appeal in the region because it was the first regional organization that South Asian member countries were part of. But way back, if you're looking at, the reason that SARC was founded was for the economic cooperation, right? So we were looking at a free trade area. But even before the free trade, we were trying to bring in a preferential trade agreement. Even there, we were not able to take it forward. political differences were of a different level. This was not open, cross-border terrorism, hostility. They were not issues. There were other issues. Which were prevalent within SAARC, and also another aspect which is not there in BIMSTEC and which was in SAARC is often the threats within the region was emanating from within the region, within the member countries. With BIMSTEC, that is completely not there. So while it may seem at a certain level that, oh, just because SAARC is not working, India is focusing on BIMSTEC, but I don't think so. Suppose, for argument's sake, let's say if things do, become normalized with Pakistan, I can certainly say with, great clarity here that India will focus both on BIMSTEC and SAARC. So it's not one or the other. BIMSTEC brings in, the fact that South Asia and Southeast Asia is coming together, and the fact that, when we are saying look east policy is all about integrating Southeast Asia with India, right? In terms of the transport systems, in terms of trade corridors that we are looking at, major supply chain issues that we are asking. We are looking at trade agreements largely. So while that will carry on, suppose SAARC does become functional, it's not that SAARC will substitute BIMSTEC or BIMSTEC will, I think both are parallel tracks and will actually dovetail each other if it ever happens to that. So it's not that India is focusing on BIMSTEC just because SAARC is non-functional. It is a fact it is non-functional, but I'm saying there were many aspects of non-functionality of SAARC even before the open hostility was taking place.
Thank you, Dr. Datta. May I now invite Dr. Segufta?
Actually, I totally agree with Dr. Datta that both the organizations are important for us, but SAARC is important for us as it focuses specifically on South Asia. And although SAARC summits are not taking place, the other mechanisms like SAARC Agricultural Organization is working. And the current interim government has also highlighted on the revival of SAARC. And BIMSTEC is also important as well. So both the organizations are important equally for us and cannot be considered one above the other one. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If any of the speakers want to add anything, they can come over. Otherwise, I just like to deliver a vote of thanks. We are really thankful to all the speakers. His Excellency Indra Pandey, Secretary General of BIMSTEC, Myint, Senior Advisor to MISIS, Colonel Nalin Herath, who is Executive Director at SASSRI, Dr. Sreeradha, Professor at OP Jindal Global University, Dr. Segufta Hossain, Research Director at BIISS, Dr. Lobzang Dorji, and Seksan. We'd like to thank you for your time. It was a really wonderful discussion. We still have lots of questions, but we have to wrap up here. Maybe we can do it in a series. So maybe next time we can hope to have you again. Thank you so much and have a nice day.